Welcome to Sarder TV, an idea-sharing platform founded by Russell Sarder, who's an author, investor, and CEO of Netcom Learning. Maureen Lonergan joins us today. Maureen is the Director of Worldwide Training and Certification at Amazon Web Service, and she's here to tell us more. Maureen, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to just start off with your background. You have such an interesting background, not only with your career, you also took a gap year and had an opportunity to work in Africa. Tell us a little bit about your past experience and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I've been in technical training most of my career, 25 or so years at different tech companies. And have worked in providing, customer training, internal training, training for support organizations, a lot of international work. And then, a couple of years ago, I took a gap year and went to Mozambique and taught school. And that was a good break and gave me a new and interesting perspective around education and the importance of it and how it can actually really transform, people's lives.
Were you able to apply any of that learning and knowledge that you gained while you were abroad to the work that you're doing at Amazon?
Yeah, I think Amazon's an interesting company because it's all about thinking differently and thinking big and innovating on behalf of our customers. But I think that experience in particular and understanding the difficulty and access to education and the amazing cloud platform that we had allowed us to think about designing for not only our customers, but any individual who wanted to learn training, regardless of where they were. So digital has become a really huge component of how we engage with individuals in order to help them learn cloud skills.
Tell us a little bit about your role at Amazon.
So I lead the AWS Training and Certification Organization, and I'm responsible for all of our customer and partner training, but we also are heavily invested in building out cloud skills for the future pipeline of cloud skills through our education initiatives with our academic program or Educate program. And then we do some programs for underserved communities with Restart. And additionally, we do some internal kind of early career talent training as well.
So tell us why cloud skills, digital skills, cloud skills have become so important.
Well, I think, companies are moving fast. They want to, move to platforms where they can innovate and have cost savings. But companies are moving rapidly, and the skills gap is real, and it's big and growing every day. So I think for us, my job is to make sure that we're putting as many skilled people out as we can in the workforce.
Tell us a little bit more about that, the skills gaps that you're seeing within the technology sector and particularly in cloud skills.
Yeah, I think, when I talk to customers, I say to them, they often say, how do I find these skills? Where do we find them in the marketplace? And I say, it's difficult, it's competitive, can be, very challenging to find. And what I encourage companies to do is really look at the talent that they have in-house, right? They've hired them because they're a cultural fit. They may need to modernize their skills. And we work with enterprises to really kind of reduce the fear of transitioning their skills, and saying that they add value to the company and that we should get them, work with companies to invest in training, not only the technical individuals within that organization, but business is a big part of it as well.
How important is it for not just the folks who are in the technology space to have skills, cloud computing skills, digital skills, but for just the workforce in general?
Yeah, we have this program we call, when we work with customers, we say it's much, cloud fluency across an entire organization is really important, right? It's not just about training individuals. It's really about how do you bring everybody along, adjust the culture, make sure that everybody's bought in, have, an executive that's sponsoring this digital transformation within an organization. So we have a program that we work with called Skills Guild, and we go in and say, we want to work with you to train everybody on cloud fluency within your organization. So from just what is it, how does it help the business, how can you innovate? And then we start to layer in the technical training that's required for digital transformation of an organization.
Who would you say is the typical student for a certification?
Originally, we started on very specific role-based certifications, a solution architect, developer, DevOps, and then we started layering in specialty certifications, security, networking. But what we found a couple of years ago is because of this huge cloud skills gap, we really look at anybody as an opportunity to transform their skills, right? And it could be a barista, could be someone who worked in retail. And what we're trying to do is make education accessible to anybody who wants. So we have foundational level programs that are all free. We have over 500 courses that are free on our digital platform. And a couple of years ago, we made the decision to build out foundational level certification. So we look at it kind of across the board. We want our customers to be able to identify cloud talent, whether it's from a business perspective or a technical perspective.
How do you advise your employees, your customers on people who aren't technical to actually take training certifications like this and to become experts in these areas, even though it might not be, you might not be a person who specializes in technology per se?
I think every organization approaches it differently, and so we really want to work from what the customer's requirements are, but we've done some interesting programs in the last year where we have worked with partners to really increase their diversity in tech, specifically women in tech. And we worked with Sloan Consulting and ran a big pilot with them and provided training and mentoring. And their CEO was very supportive of it. We were able to train hundreds of women that didn't have a tech background and get them not only trained but certified. And so we're doing that kind of across the board with different customers based on what their requirements are.
Are there any particular industries that you feel have a bigger skills gap when it comes to cloud than others?
I don't think that there's a bigger cloud skills gap. What I would say is that we have seen banking in particular really start to adopt large-scale training programs. We've worked with, Capital One, National Australia Bank, and they're not going in and just training, a couple of hundred people. They're training thousands and certifying thousands, and they're seeing huge benefits to that. National Australia Bank was an organization that was competing to find tech talent, with startups and a heavily compliance-driven banking company may not have been, what people were looking for their first job. But what National Australia Bank did, which I thought was brilliant, was they built out an entire training plan for all of their employees, built it into their skills learning paths, built communities within that organization, certified, and went out publicly and said, we're investing in our employees. And because of that, they were able to reduce their attrition from 20% to 8%. So I think the interesting thing is, for whatever reason, we're really seeing banking companies really, really invest. I mean, there's lots of other companies that are doing that as well, but there's definitely been a trend over the last year with financial services.
So you mentioned retention was one of the success factors attributed to this type of training and skilling. What other types of success metrics have you seen tied to organizations investing in training and skilling around the cloud?
I mean, Capital One was a really good one. They were really struggling with their migrations early on, and what they did is they did a very similar thing. They put a plan together, trained, I think about 1,400 people, and were able to do migrations much more rapidly. And because of that, we're able to innovate on behalf of their customers.
So we know the pandemic has changed the landscape of training and development. Tell us about some of the things that you've seen and some of the shifts and the adjustments that have been made in the space.
We had to adjust really quick. Thank goodness we were on the path to digital anyway. We had launched a digital platform. But what we did was moved that much more rapidly, started adjusting a lot of our content. We moved our certification program with both of our vendors completely to virtual proctored exams, which was, thankful for our vendors that helped us transition. But what we've seen since then is we also implemented virtual instructor-led training. So if people did want a live trainer, we did that as well. So what we saw is, I think there was a slight slowdown right after the pandemic, but we saw an incredible increase in participation in our virtual classes and our digital classes. I think people were taking that time to look at what opportunities were out there and how to skill themselves while they were, they themselves were dealing with the lockdown across the globe.
How are you and other organizations, from your perspective, planning for a sort of a post-pandemic reset of what learning and development might look like, and training and certification? Do you think that there might be some additional changes or things that are done differently?
Yeah, I think learning's changing anyway, right? The younger generations are coming up and they're used to learning through YouTube and whatever digital media that they listen to. And so we're trying to adjust as quickly as we can. I think you're going to see, I don't think that instructor-led training will go away, because I think there's value in that. But I do think that we as an organization are really looking at how do you give customers or any individual the opportunity to get their hands on the keyboard with the technology, give them shorter bursts of information, let them learn when they want. And you'll continue to see us leverage technology to do that in the future.
How do organizations deal with the different ways that employees want to learn or can learn, right? So like you had mentioned, there might be sort of the younger generation who is more technology savvy, or might want, shorter bursts of information. You might have an older generation who wants more hands-on, face-to-face.
Yeah, I think, we try and build for all types of personas or learners, right? So we kind of build once and use the content in many different ways. I think the Kmart Group in Australia, their leader, Michael Fagan, was really interesting, because they had a workforce that had been with them for a very long time, and they had a younger generation coming in. And what they did was they really wanted, he drew a line in the ground and said, we are going to educate the entire organization, including the executive assistants. And so we applied both types of programs, both digital and instructor-led. And through that program, they trained hundreds of individuals, and they certified them as well, made it a requirement. And I had the opportunity to talk to him, and he said, I can't imagine, like they provided community days, and he said, we should have been doing this all along, because the innovation and the conversations and removing the fear of actually learning a new skill was benefiting the company in such a positive way.
You had touched on this a little bit around investment in developing employee expertise, sort of leading to better retention. Can you talk a little bit more about what you've seen, or give us some trends or examples that you've seen?
Yeah, I think companies are really starting to recognize that training isn't an afterthought, right? It really is part of it. They have to build it into their culture. We at Amazon have a leadership principle called Learn and Be Curious, and that kind of drives how we innovate on behalf of our customers. And I think when I talk to customers, we're talking to them about, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? How do you think about career development? And so the conversations are changing. I think a couple of years ago it was just like, okay, what training do you need? But now it's really, how do we apply the outcomes that you want to see, and apply the right program at the right time? And I think companies are much more receptive to that, and are quite frankly seeing the benefits of investing in training and allowing their employees to spend that time, build communities, and they're seeing the benefits of that.
You also had touched on this earlier. Amazon is committing to providing free cloud skills to 29 million learners globally by 20. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so digital's been a huge part of what we've been delivering, and we believe that we have the ability through our platform to extend that to anybody who wants to learn, right? And I think that's the thing. I don't think, education has the opportunity to transform people's lives and provide better incomes. And so what we're doing is taking the programs that we have available today and expanding them and making them available not only through our platform, but through other platforms like edX and Coursera. And you'll continue to see us invest in doing that. We're also enhancing that with campaigns into new markets to try and drive awareness of education and the opportunity. And then lastly, we have a program called Restart for our underserved communities, military veterans transitioning into the workforce. And we are really focused on making sure that we not only train them through a 12-week training program, but have them matched up with companies for opportunities to interview with roles within those organizations. And so that's a big part of what we're focused on right now.
Tell us a little bit about how Amazon's learning and development structure is set up and how employees receive learning within the organization.
We have several learning, we have a traditional learning and development organization that provides training, onboarding or leadership training, diversity and inclusion training, all the things that are really important to Amazon. And then my organization and the sales enablement organization really focus on building sales skills, technical skills. We have a huge technical population within AWS, and so we train and certify all of our solution architects, our professional services organizations, our support organizations. And the interesting thing is that a lot of that training is actually built by not only my team, but solution architects, and that's the same training that we extend to our customers as well.
As part of the commitment that Amazon has made to develop cloud skills for 29 million people, as well as some of the work that you're doing with your customers and within the organization, tell us some ways that the company is helping the next generation to build out that cloud talent.
Yeah, so we're investing heavily in the next generation, actually. We have a couple of different programs, our academic program, our academy program, our educate program, and we're putting education into thousands of universities across the globe and enabling them with our content. Again, the same content we leverage, albeit built slightly differently for the academic semester or quarter, but we provide that content in and we certify those individuals as well. And so we're focused on doing that. We have an educate program that provides learning pathways and digital content to individuals in other types of school settings as well. And you'll see us focus a lot more on the K through 12 space in the upcoming years.
How do you see artificial intelligence and machine learning playing into the learning and development landscape?
Well, for one thing, we've spent a lot of time building 5 different learning paths on AI/ML, and so it's super important for us and for our customers. But for us in particular, we're leveraging it within our own systems to try and understand how people like to learn, what they consume, kind of serve up what they need for the next thing that they're trying to learn as they're growing their skill sets.
That's it. That's great. Are you seeing that used more widely across companies and industries to sort of measure that type of?
Yeah, I think if you look at any of the big players out there in the industry, that's definitely where it's heading, right? I think it's super important. I think if you can predict what people want based on what they've consumed in the past and make it easier for them to consume it, it's super important.
Tell us about your thoughts on diversity and inclusion in technology.
Yeah, it's super important to us. In fact, at least with it, at Amazon, it's super important, and within our organization, we use that as a design point for all of our programs that we build, right? Whether it's accessibility or making sure that programs are getting into communities where they don't have access to education, technical education. We work really hard within our own organization to make sure that we're hiring diverse builders. We want to build on behalf of our diverse customers, and we believe that diversity and differences of culture and thought is so important in building the best products we can for our customers.
And you made it a point to say that you included it as part of your design, your training and development design. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, how is it that that's being included as a point in your design?
Well, I mean, from an accessibility perspective, right, we have people that are focused on that with the way we're designing our platforms or our content and making it consumable. We're doing it when we think about going into into an audience where they may not have access to education, technical education, and so really designing for more foundational level training and being very intentional about who and how we recruit individuals into those programs, and then provide kind of ongoing mentoring and support and get them jobs in the community.
And how would you recommend that people sort of continuously seek to enhance their own skills and skill sets to stay relevant in the business world today?
I think it's really hard. The world is moving so fast, and I think the last year has been extraordinarily challenging, and people are balancing not only their jobs but homeschooling their kids or taking care of their parents. And I think finding time, we've done in our organization is we have no meeting Friday. Doesn't always work out, but we try to have no meeting Friday. And what we're trying to do is lead by example within my organization, which is that's your time to think big and innovate and really spend time learning. And learning is a lot of things. It's not just training, right? It's spending time with individuals and having conversations. It's reviewing business plans and talking about it and learning from others. Like, that's such an important part of how we get to where we're, get the best things and best ideas out into the marketplace is through that. So I think you have to approach it from the perspective that anything's a learning opportunity. Certainly training is a part of it, and everybody should set aside time for the way they like to learn. But I think, being open and thoughtful and asking really good questions, I learn every single day from my team, and I'm thankful for it.
So with so much changing so rapidly all the time, what are your thoughts on some of the most important skills that we need to sort of stay relevant in the coming years, whether those are hard skills or soft skills?
I think it's a bit of both, right? It's like, I think, business acumen and fluency is super important. I think, for cloud in particular, like cloud fluency and just an understanding that technology is changing so fast, and cloud is such a huge part of that, taking the time to understand what it is and how it impacts, your company is super important.
And you've been in the learning space for several years now. What are some of the most, what would you say are some of the most interesting or fascinating trends that you've seen in the learning space over the years?
I think it's the transformation of learning in general and really how people like to learn and consume. I mean, I watch my nephews, on YouTube learning how to do things. And I think, being really understanding how people want to consume it and being able to adjust and build. And I think there's some really cool technology coming out. And I think we're at the very start of transformation on learning. And I think the last year, again, with COVID going on, is like we've seen, companies innovate on behalf of schools and universities. And I think that is going to drive a ton of innovation. And I think we're going to learn not only from an academic perspective, but an IT perspective, kind of how people want to consume and how we can best enhance those learning experiences.
And how do you see digital learning evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think you'll see a lot more things around AR, like really leveraging those technologies, virtual reality technologies to put people closer to the experience that they're learning. I think hands-on experience is critical, and the technology's, again, adjusting really fast. And I think that it's going to be more hands-on keyboards, more interactive experiences through virtual reality technology, I assume.
Which industries do you see virtual reality playing a significant role in learning?
I think it could be anything, I think if you look at retail or distribution centers, you could learn how to navigate a distribution center, or if you wanted to learn how to banking, how to transact, it could be anything, I think, really, for us, from an AWS perspective, what does the console look like? What does it look to architect a solution, and watching someone do that. I mean, I myself just use my nephew's Oculus, and it's fascinating, right? It makes you think, like, oh my God, what could we potentially do with this? And how is it going to, how are people and training companies going to innovate? And I think my gut is that's where it's going to go.
Tell us about some of the best career advice you've given.
It's funny, I have a couple of mentees right now. I think one of the things that, I always say to new people that come into the company, listen more than you talk, ask good questions, be thoughtful. I think it's really easy. And I did the same thing when I came to the organization. Amazon's such an amazing company. I almost didn't think, I didn't think big enough, and I didn't ask enough questions when I first got here. And I think if I had slowed down instead of just, taking what I know and try to apply it at another company, doesn't always work, right? So I always tell everybody, don't rush, be thoughtful, ask questions, listen. It's super important. And then over time, find your voice, right? We have a narrative process at AWS where we review business plans, and the whole purpose of that is to really get people's input and feedback, and finding your voice and bringing it to the table. It helps. It helps.
And what work experiences do you feel are beneficial to helping your career trajectory?
I mean, kind of it's funny. I think everything I've done has gotten me to where I am at some level. I was a waitress and a bartender when I was in college, and then I worked in sales and marketing for a while, and then I taught school in Africa. And I mean, I think all of those help to inform who you are. I think if you are a learner, and I think it just makes you who you are long term.
Well, this was great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Me too. And we'll see you next time on Sarder TV.